Hello and welcome to the Actual Tech Media EcoCast. My name is Jess and I am excited to be here with you all today. But before we jump into our content, I have some basic information that I want to cover with you. All right, let's kick off our day here today by taking a quick tour of your audience console. And we're going to start with the questions window. So if you haven't already said hi, there is a whole audience of cool humans out there, so reach out and give a wave to the other members of the Actual Tech Media community. Now, keep in mind that if you do have any technical issues today, a browser refresh is going to fix just about anything. But if those tech gremlins are clinging on today, no problem. Just throw a comment in the question section and our crew will be there to help. We also want this to be an informative webinar for you, so throughout today's EcoCast, we hope you'll get engaged and ask all your burning questions. Not only will we have team members responding to you over a live chat, we will also have a dedicated Q&A session at the end of our presentations. Now, if we don't get to your question during the live webinar today, don't worry, because the awesome experts that we have here with us will be following up after we wrap. All right, next up, there's going to be lots of cool aha moments on the EcoCast today. And if you want to share those with your community, we've made it nice and easy for you. You can use the Twitter button right there in your audience console, and the hashtag for today's EcoCast will be automatically added to your post. All right, our last stop on this guided tour, be sure to check out the handouts tab for some awesome resources and takeaways from our speakers here today. We have an info pack collection, solution briefs, white papers, data sheets, free trials, ebooks, upcoming webinars, and more. So many great resources, so be sure to go explore. Now, if that wasn't enough fun, we also have some exciting prizes that we'll be giving away throughout today's EcoCast. I'm going to tell you a bit more about those later on, but a few quick reminders for you all. First, you do need to be here live in attendance at the EcoCast in order to qualify to win a prize, and we will follow up with all of you after we wrap. Now, all winners must submit an IRS Form W-9 to Actual Tech Media, and all winners must meet the Actual Tech Media prize terms and conditions. Now, if you don't know what those full T's and C's are, that's fine. We've got the full thing for you. Just head on over to that handouts tab, click in, scroll down to the bottom, and you'll find them waiting for you there. Now, the absolute most important thing to remember is that we love getting all your insightful questions during these live webinars. In fact, we love it so much that we actually have a special additional prize for all you inquisitive folks out there. So in today's EcoCast, we will be giving away a prize for the best question asked in each of our live sessions. Now, the expert speakers and teams will review all questions asked after we wrap the webinar, which means that even if your question does not get read out in a live session, there is still a chance to win. If you are a lucky winner here today and you would like to donate the value of your prize, we have several wonderful organizations that we partner with. So let us know when we follow up about your big win, and we'll get that rolling for you. Again, we are so happy to have you all here with us live at the EcoCast today, and we want to keep that good feeling going, so let's connect on social media. Reach out and connect with Actual Tech Media on Twitter and on LinkedIn. We have lots of great content, and we always want to hear from you. Now, if you're looking for more awesome content and resources right after we wrap the EcoCast today, be sure to subscribe to the Actual Tech Media channel on YouTube. Another fun way to win a prize and, hey, grow this awesome community is to refer an industry friend or a coworker to the Actual Tech Media webinar series. Now, you'll find a link to do that right in your handouts tab, and you will also be automatically redirected at the end of the webinar. And both you and your coworker or friend could win a prize, and we hold those drawings every month. So be sure to refer a friend, because it could quite literally be a win-win situation. Next, we have a cool opportunity for all the decision makers out there to get connected with new and emerging tech and innovative vendors. Here's how it works. All you need to do is click on the link in your handouts tab, fill out a quick application, and the Actual Tech crew will then match you with some vendors that we think you should probably be chatting with based on your needs. There will also be fun opportunities that you get to choose to join in, like surveys, test runs, new solutions, extended demos, and so on. You'll get some chances to win extra prizes, you'll chat with great people, and you'll learn about the hottest new trends in tech. So be sure to apply, or hey, send that link to a decision maker on your team. Now, I want to take a quick minute here to remind you all about one of my favorite resources, and that is ransomware.org. You can find out everything you need to know about ransomware, how to prepare, prevent, and recover. This site is jam-packed with information, helpful tips, checklists, strategic approaches, case studies, everything you need in one place. So wherever you are in your ransomware preparedness journey, there is something for you at ransomware.org. Go check it out and start exploring. All right, I have one more exciting resource I have to tell you about today, and that is the Gorilla Guide Book Club. It's going to give you access to free enterprise IT books authored by top industry experts, so you can stay up to date on trending enterprise technology. And yes, these books will work on your Kindle, your mobile device, and as I said, they are completely free. You can download these awesome resources at gorilla.guide, and there's a link for you in that handouts tab as well. All right, well, we have covered a lot of important things already, and I don't know about you all, but I am excited to dive in. So let's get going.
Alrighty, hello and welcome, folks. It is time to dive in on today's topic, data center versus cloud versus colo. What to consider, how to choose, and how to move. For the past 15 years, the big momentum in new applications and migrations has been toward the cloud. As nearly every organization has become very sophisticated about the cloud, that momentum is actually changing. There's an increasing focus on putting data and applications in the right place, which is often cloud, but can also be your own data center or in a co-location facility. Luckily, we have expert presenters from 1111 Systems and Proterra to help guide us in this important conversation today. I'm sure you're all ready and pumped up to get started, so we're going to go through just a few last bits of info and then get our speakers on out here with us. My name is Mackenzie Puddesy, and I'm a moderator here at Actual Tech Media, and I've got my friends and fellow moderators Jess Steinbach, Scott Becker, and Keith Ward here on live chat with me today. And now, if it's your first EcoCast with me, it is great to meet you, and I want to thank you for being here. And just to make sure you're all awake and alive out there, why don't you find the questions tab in your console, and let's start out by saying hi, hello, bonjour, hola, aloha, or whatever greeting you'd like to leave today, and give a big wave to the community here with us. Now, I've got a few exciting things beyond just the incredibly valuable information you're about to receive. I have got some prizes. Today on the EcoCast, you could win one of three $300 Amazon gift cards that will be given away to 3 lucky winners who are here, present, and live with us at the EcoCast. And as mentioned in the housekeeping video this morning, you can find the full T's and C's linked in the handouts tab if you have any questions about that. And hey, with that last little thing, we are indeed ready to rock. First up, we've got our keynote speaker today, who is going to be joined by my fellow moderator here at Actual Tech Media, Keith Ward, a seasoned journalist in the tech sphere. So let me introduce you to the incredible Dan Sullivan. He's a cloud architect and cloud analyst, and this dynamic duo will be setting the stage for today's discussion in a Q&A format. So with that, Keith, Dan, I'm going to kick things over to you.
Hi, everyone, and welcome to the EcoCast. We're going to kick this off with an overview of the key things you need to know to help decide which infrastructure is the best fit for you. I'm Keith Ward with Actual Tech Media, and I'm joined today by Dan Sullivan. Now, Dan is a cloud architect who lives and breathes this stuff, and it's an honor to be with him today. Dan, welcome.
Hi, Keith. Thank you. It's a pleasure to be here.
Oh, absolutely. It's my pleasure to be on with you. So why don't we just get started then? First question for you today. Let's do some definitions, Dan. How would you describe the differences between data center, co-location, and cloud deployments?
Okay, well, I think one way to think about it is like a spectrum. And at one end of the spectrum, we have data centers. So that's basically our private location. We, as say the managers of the infrastructure, have complete control. Like, we manage the physical facility, things like power, cooling, access to the internet, how we back up our power systems, or how we have redundant internet connections, all of that. Plus, we manage all of the compute, storage, networking infrastructure, as well as the applications that run on that. So really, in a data center model, we manage everything. Now, when you start shifting to co-location, which you can kind of think of as in the middle of the spectrum, we're moving into a more shared responsibility model. And with a co-location, we don't necessarily own the physical plant, but we're maybe renting space in somebody else's data center. So we might be in a building that we share with other people who are also co-locating, and we have our servers, our equipment in there, maybe our storage systems, but we're taking advantage of somebody else who provides the physical infrastructure, power, redundant power supplies, maybe access to the internet, and things like that. So that's sort of the co-location where we have some control, but we're not managing physical plant, the building. And then finally, the other end of the spectrum from the data center is the public cloud model. And here with the public cloud model, we are moving even farther into that shared model because now not only is somebody else responsible for the physical plant, but they're also providing a lot of the hardware. They're providing hardware which has been virtualized and oftentimes it's delivered to us as services. So we don't necessarily think about, oh, what kind of hardware am I going to use for my storage backend? I might decide I'm going to use block storage, and the cloud provider provides me with a service, and I have access to virtual block storage or object storage, say for my backups or archives. So with the cloud model, we are most of the three, we are the most dependent on another party to sort of be our partners in this, in the sense that they're providing not only the physical infrastructure, but also a lot of the compute, storage, and networking services as well. So that's sort of a quick overview of the three distinct models here.
And it's probably worth pointing out that they don't always have to be distinct in terms of your deployment. They don't always have to be separate, and we'll get into that. In fact, that
Yes.
kind of leads me into my next question. So, what I was thinking of course, there was like a hybrid, type of deployment. So, what factors should someone consider when they're choosing between the options you just laid out?
Okay, well, yes, that's a great question. Yeah, thank you for pointing that out. Hybrid is
Mhm.
probably a more common model than being exclusively one of any one of these things. And so you want to think about how much control you want over certain aspects of your infrastructure. Like if you really want and need to have control over, say, the physical access to the building where your equipment is residing, then data center is really, the best option. You're certainly not going to get that with the cloud. Co-location, you might get some of your requirements met, but not others. So if you don't have, those really stringent requirements, or, you need to be the only person occupying a particular space, then co-location is good. If really what you're concerned about is you want to be able to pick your own equipment, like if you work in specialized, you have specialized hardware that you want to manage yourself, then co-location is a good option. If you don't want to also be responsible for all the power engineering and things like that and cooling systems that go along with it. Now, if really your sort of emphasis and your business domain and your core functionality is centered around compute services and building software or delivering services, then a cloud model is really a good approach. Now, as you pointed out earlier, a lot of times we go with a hybrid model because there are cost considerations. People move to the cloud and oftentimes, expect I'm going to save all kinds of money because I don't have to buy hardware, I don't have capital expenditures. Um, but your operating expenses could be higher than they are now versus, say, being in a data center. If you look at, say, the cost per hour of CPU time on a particular server, so we have to be careful about the cost model. Those are some of the factors we want to think about this, and that's why a lot of people go hybrid. Sometimes going Colo and having your own hardware and running, a committed set of resources that you own is less expensive than using the cloud, or you use the cloud for bursting during spike periods, like during the holiday season if you're in retail. So there are different ways to kind of slice and dice the three.
I know that one reason in the past that people still were satisfied or wanted to keep everything in the data center was for compliance issues. Is that still as big a requirement? It seems to me that compliance more and more can be done with cloud-based or hybrid-based infrastructures too. Is that accurate?
Yes, yeah, because the public cloud vendors, it's in their interest to be able to be in compliance, of course. And so you can well, you don't necessarily say get access to the low level logs that you might have in your own data center. You can get access to the cloud providers' compliance reports from different certification agencies and things like that. So you can meet compliance requirements using a combination of your own practices plus what the public cloud provider also has had essentially audited, validated that they are in compliance with the areas of the domain that they control.
Okay, great. Now, a lot of companies are considering migrations to maybe going to a hybrid model, maybe going to a cloud only model, some sort of a different configuration than they have for whatever their reasons are, and there can be many. But that also causes night sweats, for admins when they're thinking about this. What would you recommend in terms of ways to ease one of these migrations, ways to smooth out a transition from one model to another?
I'd say I suggest a two-tier approach, and one tier is focused on planning, and the second tier is focused on just a proof of concept implementation. With the planning phase, what you really want to do is just start with an inventory of your services, and say you're considering moving from a data center to a co-location. You want to understand what are the assets you think you might want to have in the co-location facility. What are the dependencies? Like there may be some tightly coupled, hardware dependencies or networking issues that you need to take in consideration. You want to make sure you identify those early. And then you can start thinking about, well, what would a migration look like? Would you have downtime? Would you have duplicate servers? Maybe double up your hardware, and have a quick switch over, or is it more of a delayed? Can you be offline for some period of time and do a switch over? So I want to think about that transition period. And you also want to think in the planning stages, how are we going to validate that we have set up our infrastructure correctly, whether it's, our physical infrastructure in a co-location, or we've set up some virtual machines or our cluster, or setting up services in a cloud. How do we validate that our operations that work in our current environment are also working there? So those are kind of some of the main points you want to think about in terms of what do we want to cover on our plan. The second piece
Okay.
is there's no better way to learn than doing. And with a migration, this is especially easy in the cloud because you can easily spin up things, make mistakes, spin them down, try again. But what we want to do is find some low risk activity, and it might be, say, moving some, not necessarily highly critical reporting to a cloud infrastructure, and that might include, say, moving a database to a cloud service and running some reports and making sure the reports are distributed, or providing a portal or access to a web application, moving that to the cloud first, because you'll learn a lot about things like identity and access management, the logging, monitoring services that are available in the cloud. If you're going to be, say, using your observability tool that you've had on-prem, if you want to use that same one in the cloud, this is an opportunity to kind of really dig into the licensing and understand what's required to move some licenses to the cloud. With Colo, it might be a little more complicated, again, because you're dealing with physical infrastructure. So you might, rent just a small rack section and just do an experiment and move a small piece over. Because again, there are a lot of lessons you can learn that it's oftentimes it's hard to anticipate all the possible combinations of things, and where sort of the railroad tracks might not come together exactly as you expect. But doing a proof of concept or a POC is really a great way to kind of identify some of those potential gotchas.
Absolutely. And caution is really the word of the day for that. You don't want to dive in not having tested everything out very thoroughly with your POC, that you're discussing. There are going to be hiccups. That's the other thing to mention here, Dan. I think patience is required. There will be issues that you come across during any kind of migration, during any sort of change like that. But be patient, realize that these things are going to happen, and, don't move production servers live until you're ready to. Some of these basic things that sometimes people are so eager to get going that they don't think about as carefully as they should. So thank you so much for all of that great advice, Dan. It was great to talk to you today.
Okay.
And with that, I'm going to throw this back to our moderator. We have a great event coming up, and enjoy the rest of the show. Thanks again, Dan.
Thanks, Keith. It was a pleasure.
Awesome. Thank you, Keith and Dan. Super excited to have you both on here. Great banter to get things going. And I think some of those terms, just defining, laying those out and putting them on the spectrum like you did, that was great. I do have a poll up for everyone there. So we're just curious to know, what is your time frame for adding new or updating your existing IT solutions at your company? Is this 0 to 6 months, 6 to 12, 12 to 24? Or maybe you're not sure and you're still taking a bit of a lay of the land here. That's what you're here for today. Do some prospecting and find out what kind of options are available to you. Alrighty, take a few more seconds with that, and I'm going to get our first speaker out on here with us. Did I say that rightly? Out here with us. On today's EcoCast, we've got two fantastic teams presenting. It's going to fly by and be jam-packed with valuable information, as always, so let's dive in. First up on the docket, we've got the team from 1111 Systems. We have Brian McCrory, who's the Senior Solutions Architect over at 1111. And while Brian presents, I encourage you to ask some thoughtful and insightful questions that I'll be able to pose to him during the live Q&A. Not only do we get to pick his brain for valuable information, but I do want to remind you that there is a $50 Best Question gift card up for grabs from each session today. So it could quite literally pay to be curious, which is music to my ears. And with that, Brian, I'm just going to pass things over to you. Take it away. The floor is yours.
Well, good afternoon, everybody. Happy Tuesday, and it's a pleasure to be with everyone. And lucky me, I am excited to get somebody $50 with the right question today. So again, excited to be a part of this platform. Brian McCrory, Senior Solutions Architect with 1111 Systems. Been in this industry quite a long time, but I won't age myself. So listen, let's jump right into this: data center versus cloud versus colo. Why do we consider this? How do we consider it? How to choose and when to choose? And let's see what we can talk about today. So let's go on and jump right in. And I'm looking forward to your questions. So first and foremost, when making these decisions, I want to talk a little bit about some of the trending that we've seen in the industry, what some of my experiences have been throughout the course of my career compared to what we're seeing in the industry today. Let's just take, first and foremost, we're in 2024, and the IT industry is seeing some significant shifts in how organizations are currently managing their compute workloads across cloud, across co-location, in and out of the data centers. And a lot of this is currently being driven by a lot of the evolving technologies, a lot of the business requirements by organizations, as well as many of the cost considerations. So when we think about, hybrid cloud, when we think about co-location, when we think about the trending, we see there's a growing trend towards hybrid cloud IT strategies. In a lot of cases, what I'm finding is it's not data center or cloud. Sometimes it's a combination, right? So with that trend towards hybrid IT, we see a notable shift of workloads from public clouds. We do see a lot of organizations moving to, co-location data centers. It's still happening today. And, this movement is being driven by a lot of concern over cost, security, and performance, especially for, those resource intensive applications like artificial intelligence. What I've seen is, a lot of organizations that I find, they find that as workloads are maturing, public cloud solutions become overly expensive, and they're kind of lacking the control and the security that are offered by co-location facilities. So there's an emergence of hyperscale and AI-driven data centers. And given hyperscale data centers, this is primarily driven by those tech giants like Amazon, the Microsofts of the world, and Google Cloud. And so these organizations continue to dominate the landscape because of their innate ability to handle these large or these vast amounts of data and workloads efficiently. And what you get with these facilities, they're able to integrate artificial intelligence that can optimize operations. They're able to, reduce the energy consumption that's driven by these workloads, as well as enhance the security, making it essential for these businesses to leverage AI and big data. So let's think about this. So what are organizations doing? Having your, what drives a company to have their own data center? For the most part, having your own data center allows you complete customization of the infrastructure. When I talk to organizations, you think about it from hardware configuration to network setup, you are able to own your costs, right? You're able to control your costs, your long-term investment. You think about building and maintaining a data center. It involves a significant upfront costs, right? There's a big investment upfront. It offers more predictable costs over the long term. So there's the benefit. Unlike cloud services that can have variable pricing based on usage, owning your data center allows you to avoid that unexpected charge, or those unexpected charges allows you to better manage your budgeting, your financial planning. So there are some significant benefits to owning a data center. Also, if you think, if your business relies on high performance applications that require, low latency and high throughput, think about like a financial trading platform. Think about real-time analytics. Think about, large scale data processing, right? Having a local data center can ensure optimal performance by reducing data transmission times and minimizing latency. People that have their own data centers, they think about it. People have them for multiple reasons. As we stated before, the first and most common reason is having that control, right? Some organizations, you think historically, why would I have my own data center? For some people, it's we've always done it that way, or we have specific requirements. Does that mean that you should go out and build a data center because it's always been done that way? Not really, but here's an example that I've run into. I used to work in the healthcare vertical market many years ago. I supported hospitals. I designed solutions for healthcare organizations. And so there are many hospitals that can run in their own data center, or they can run in Colo, or they can run in the cloud, and that's fine. But there are some hospitals that run technologies that absolutely have to be within very close proximity of the hospital, right? Because outside of the hospital or at a great distance, it just doesn't work, right? The size of the images that they're moving because of their PACS machines, their imaging machines, for example, especially for those highly advanced hospitals, they have to be right next to the hospital. The campus has to be right next to the doors, literally where they have their beds, because of that requirement. Many of them choose to have the data center close. Now, most hospitals don't have to do this. Most hospitals actually use co-location, because we have high-speed networks, et cetera. But there are some highly advanced hospitals that produce so much data that they have this need for a closer proximity, and it's absolutely a requirement. Think about, another example is, certain government agencies. They just can't afford to have a data center that's in a co-location facility, right? Or that's in, like a hypercloud environment. So does that mean, you need to build your own data center? I don't know, maybe not. But if you have these types of requirements, then you may need to consider this, right? And then there's other cases, right? There may be an organization that maybe they didn't build the data center, but maybe through acquisition, right? You've inherited a data center, and so they justify it by saying, hey, I still have an investment in the facility. I have a generator. It's still working. It still has 10 years on it. Maybe I'll use it for the next 6 years. And after that, I'll plan for something else. And that leaves us, with a couple of other options, possibly co-location and maybe cloud. So let's move on to the next option. So here we have, co-location. So choosing co-location as your data center strategy is ideal for organizations that kind of need a balance, right, between control, cost efficiency, and scalability. And they want that without the burden of fully owning and operating or fully owning the responsibility of that data center, right? Remember, we talked about having control over what equipment they buy, or sometimes they want to have control over what equipment they buy or what OS they're setting up or how they set things up, what security they have, the physical devices they use for security, how everything is connected. They feel because of their business, it's either required or it's not, or, it needs the agility of owning everything. That's one of the main reasons people will use co-location, right? Co-location is still widely used in the marketplace. But with co-location, you get to lower the upfront costs, right? Co-location allows businesses to avoid that high initial capital expenditure that's required to build and maintain a private data center. Instead, companies can lease the space within a co-location facility, providing access to all of that robust infrastructure without the substantial financial outlay. Now, with this model, it's advantageous for businesses that are looking to conserve that capital, but they still require that reliable IT environment. But in this environment, in this scenario, you have more predictable operating costs, right? Co-location facilities typically offer predictable monthly costs for your power, for your cooling, for your space, which oftentimes makes budgeting a whole lot easier and helps avoid the variable costs that are often associated with cloud services, like egress fees and pay-as-you-go pricing models. So that kind of lends credence to why organizations will want to choose co-location. And then there's public cloud, right? Choosing public cloud, and that's been an evolution, right, since the early 2000s. Choosing public cloud can be the optimal decision for many organizations. And again, this depends on the specific need and the business objectives of the organization, right? With public cloud, you can get on-demand resources, you can get scalable resources. Public cloud platforms provide virtually unlimited resources that can be scaled up, they can be scaled down, and oftentimes this can be done instantaneously. Now, this type of flexibility is ideal for those businesses that have the fluctuating workloads. You think about those seasonal spikes that are in demand. You think about the dynamic growth within those organizations. For example, an e-commerce site may experience a surge in traffic during the Christmas holidays or Mother's Day or Valentine's Day, whatever the season might be, and quickly scale resources up to meet the demand without the need for upfront hardware investments, right? Also, you consider having global reach. Think about a quick deployment. Cloud providers have data centers worldwide, right? Having a data center worldwide allows businesses to deploy applications and services close to the users to reduce latency, to improve performance. And the ability to have this global reach is extremely beneficial for those organizations that are looking to expand into new markets, right? To quickly provide a consistent user experience across different geographies. And then there's other benefits, right? You think about having the ability to pay as you go, right? Public cloud operates on a pay as you go model where businesses only pay for the resources that they use. We call it, pay by the drink, right? And with this model, it's really cost effective for startup organizations, for those small businesses, those organizations. You think about the online businesses, organizations that want to avoid the capital expenditures associated with building and maintaining their own infrastructure. But think about this. It also allows for better financial planning and budgeting as costs align closely with your usage. When business is great, you're expanding. When business gets trimmed, you can reduce your usage and your cost of doing business goes down. So there are significant benefits with cloud computing. So how about hyperscale? Now, when we think about hyperscale cloud, we think about those companies like AWS. These are the big guns, right? AWS and Microsoft Azure and Google Cloud. Now, this type of infrastructure is ideal when your organizations need to leverage the extensive resources, right? You think the high-end scalability. You think about the global reach that these cloud providers can offer. You think about the ability to rapid scale. So if your business requires rapid scaling of IT resources, a hyperscale cloud is the optimal choice. You think about these providers that can offer virtually unlimited resources that can be scaled up or down almost instantly to meet fluctuating demand on a high level. This is particularly beneficial for businesses that are experiencing rapid growth, those seasonal traffic spikes on a higher level, or launching new products that may require significant computing power or significant storage at short notice. You think so from a global expansion perspective, hyperscale clouds have a vast global network of data centers that allow you to deploy applications and services closer to end users around the world, but it's on a much higher level. So this geographic reach reduces latency. It improves performance for international customers, making it ideal for businesses that are expanding into new markets on a higher level or needing to maintain a consistent user experience across different regions. But it's also consistent with that pay-as-you-go pricing model. Hyperscale cloud providers offer flexible pay-as-you-go pricing, allowing businesses to larger enterprises to only pay for the resources they use. And this model, again, same concept for smaller businesses, but for larger enterprises, it's ideal for those organizations that are looking to, again, minimize the capital expenditures, align their costs with actual usage, provides a cost-effective solution for those organizations that don't have the predictable workloads but need to manage variable costs efficiently. But think about this. One thing that I always tell my clients, a hyperscale cloud is very cost effective, especially if you're using native functionality, right? You think about this. You don't just take a database server there. Instead, you use the hyperscaler's database fabric, right? Resources will be a lot more cost effective and easier to manage if you're leveraging the hyperscaler's resources. But one thing that you have to consider is hypercloud or hyperscaler clouds require one big item to make it truly beneficial. And this is where most organizations make their mistake. You have to have the skill to operate within the hypercloud. Without the proper skill set to effectively operate within your hypercloud tenant environment, your costs can become very quickly mismanaged. I always recommend to clients to make sure that you have in-house subject matter experts or certified individuals to make sure that you're efficiently managing your environment. And that's where people can make their mistakes with regards to hypercloud. So let's think about this from the perspective of advantages and disadvantages. Owning your data center, you have full control over the hardware, the software, security, environment, allowing for maximum customization. Data security, you've got control over your physical, your cybersecurity, making it easier to meet your strict compliance requirements. Some of the challenges, it's high upfront costs, limited scalability, management overhead. With co-location, you have lower upfront costs, you have scalability. Some of the challenges, shared infrastructure, ongoing costs. So those are, some of the challenges of the advantages and disadvantages with co-location. Some of the things that we're seeing in the industry. So what I try to tell people is, with data center modernization, think about adopting modular, software-defined, and energy-efficient data center infrastructure to enhance performance. Think about rapid growth in edge computing to support real-time applications. The Internet of Things devices, your edge devices are critical. Bringing your data processing closer to your source, closer to your production environment, to your end users. A lot of enterprises are leveraging a combination of on-prem data centers, co-location facilities. Hyperscale cloud providers, continue to gain market share. There's the increasing emphasis on reducing the environmental impact of data centers through renewable energy, water conservation, and circular economy practices. So these are things that we really, really have to pay close attention to. And so these are things that we're seeing in the industry. Choosing the right solution. Understand the capabilities and limitations of your current data center. Think about from your compute perspective. Think about storage and network infrastructure. Define your organization's goals, including scalability, cost effectiveness, compliance. Consider the types of applications and the data and the usage patterns, along with your resource requirements, data sensitivity, and your regulatory constraints. All of these things are critical when making your decisions. And when it comes to migrating to the cloud, anticipate your future demands, right? Research, compare providers, do your due diligence. All of this is really, really, really critical. Review upfront and ongoing and hidden costs to determine the most financially viable solutions. Test, validate, optimize, manage. All of these things are critical. And then think about 1111. We've got experience in the industry. We're here to help you. We provide private cloud solutions, disaster recovery as a service, migration services. If you're looking to migrate from one place to the next, 1111 is here to support you in whatever way we can. Disaster recovery as a service, as I said before, there are a number of ways to do that. We can help you identify, tier your data. Excited. Thank you so much. I appreciate the opportunity to serve you guys. I know we're going to move up to the point to where we can answer some questions for you. We've been around, like I said, a long time. Look forward to answering some questions. I know I'm just rushing to the end here because I know we're out of time. These are some of the industry recognized certifications that we have. Who has seen us in the marketplace, who recognizes us in the marketplace. Let me know if I'm in trouble for running out of time, guys, but we'll get to the questions here. And here, if you can, go ahead and scan the QR code, go to 1111systems.com, and you can get more information on our organization. And then with that, I will pause so that we can get some questions answered.
Awesome. No, that's great. That's great. We can leave the QR up if you want for a second.
Sure.
And then let's roll into some questions. Great presentation. We still have a little bit of time, so no worries. Let's dive right into it. So the first one I've got is from Artis. Artis is asking, what challenges have you faced with structure availability or modernization? Are there any specific pain points that keep emerging?
Can you read that question one more time, or can I see that question?
Maybe.
Because you cut out.
Sorry. So question is, what challenges have you faced when assessing your current infrastructure for scalability or modernization? Are there any specific pain points that keep emerging?
So I think the challenges are I think what a lot of clients are neglecting to do is conducting an impact analysis for any types of migrations, right? Understanding what your critical applications are and what the impact of any movement will be, any migrations will be when considering moving from where you are to where you want to be. I think that's really critical. I hope that answers the question. Taking a real good look at what your applications are, what is the expected outcome for any movement, any migration, and understanding your your TCO and your return on investment for any movement.
Yeah, I like that. So kind of a bit of a holistic look, like, what are we trying to achieve? What are our outcomes? And then putting those
Right,
implementations in place.
right. Who
Awesome.
wins
Okay.
and who loses?
Yeah, exactly. That's a good way to put it. So next question I've got here is, how do you go about evaluating different cloud or colocation providers? Do service level agreements or specific support offerings weigh heavily in your decisions?
Absolutely. And that is a loaded question, and it probably takes 10 minutes to answer.
Can you
But
do
when
it
it
in
comes to
30
evaluate,
seconds?
say it again.
I said, can you do it in 30 seconds or a minute? The Coles Notes version.
So again, it really depends on what you're looking for in your provider. That's why you have to take an inventory of what your expectations are, right? You think about performance and availability. You have to look at what type of service level expectations you have. What's driving your decision? Is it security? Is it compliance? Is it the cost and pricing model? Right? How transparent is the pricing from the provider? A lot of providers can get you in there, but what happens when pulling my data out? Right? It's easy to get in. Sometimes it's tough to get out. And what type of cost optimization tools do they have? Sometimes you have to check to see if the provider offers tools to manage and optimize, cloud spending, cost reporting, alerts. How visible is the billing, right? What type of services do they have? The feature sets. What is the breadth of services that they can provide? Are there managed services? I can go on and on. What's the level of reliability? What is their reputation, right? How deep and profound is their customer service, right? What levels of support do they have? What are their response times? How available is their documentation, right? So is there any vendor lock-in? So there are a lot of things that you really need to evaluate with your cloud providers. And so, you have to ask each of your providers the same questions and do a comparison.
That's awesome. And just for everyone out there in the audience, I've thrown up a poll. So if you are looking for any additional information about the 1111 system solution, you can punch that in there. If you're looking for data sheets, white papers, case studies, pricing demos, you've got all that there you can request. And since we're on the topic of cost, and I know that's really important to everyone, I've got one more question that came in about that. They were saying, when conducting a cost analysis, how do you ensure that hidden costs, especially around cloud services, are accurately accounted for? Have there been any surprises in the past with infrastructure investments?
So how do you confirm that costs are
Um,
valid?
More so, like, what should people consider doing their analysis on this cost? If they're looking to migrate, looking to make changes, are there some things people are overlooking, or sneaky hidden costs? What would those be, or how should they approach that?
Yeah, interesting. So I'll just tell you what I've heard or what I hear from clients, right? Compute costs, storage costs, network costs, licensing fees, support costs, right? What about, because I come from the DR world, disaster recovery and backup. It's one thing to consider, the cost of moving my production into the cloud, but what are the costs for disaster recovery? What are the costs of cyber resilience, right? What are the indirect costs, from an operational perspective? How much training is it going to cost me to come up to speed to be able to manage my environment in your cloud? What is the cost of migration? Is that included, or do I need to bring in a third party? Do you provide migration costs? Are the data transfer costs? We've had clients, in our cloud services offering, we provide S3 buckets within AWS, right? And we've got the cheapest repository on the planet. We're cheaper than Wasabi, but there's a cost to move your data into our bucket at AWS, into our S3 bucket. So what are the data transfer costs? what is the downtime to your organization for that transition. So those are the things that you have to consider.
Awesome. Great answer for that. I think so. Look, it sounds pretty good. Also, anyone out there who didn't have your question answered, I know it's always tight on these Q&As, but they'll be able to reach out from 1111 Systems after this and make sure you get any information you need. And with that, I'm going to give you a final thanks for being here and then let you take off, Brian. Thank you for everything.
Absolutely. Glad to be here. Appreciate it.
My pleasure. Take good care.
Take care.
Alrighty, everyone. If you are out there in the audience and you haven't yet visited the handouts tab, make sure you go check that out. This will be the perfect way to follow up with the conversation we just had with Brian and the 1111 Systems team. What you've got in there from them is a data sheet outlining 9 keys to a pain-free cloud migration. So if you're looking to migrate, this is a great document in PDF. Grab that, save it for later after today's EcoCast. Now, right now, we have the first of 3 $300 Amazon gift cards to give away, and a quick reminder that you must be present at the webinar to win. So here, our first lucky winner is going out to, or is, Sean Ford from Missouri. Huge congrats to you, Sean, and we'll be reaching out after today's EcoCast to let you know how to claim your prize. Now, next up on today's short but ever so sweet EcoCast is the experts from Proterra. So please let me introduce you to the brilliant Sean Donaldson, who is the Chief Technology Officer at Proterra. Sean, I'm looking forward to hearing from you on this topic and then joining you for some Q&A afterwards. Reminder to all of you out in the audience, it is a $50 Best Question gift card up for grabs here. So keep those insightful questions coming along. And one of the best things about these webinars is being able to pose questions to experts. So keep those coming in. And with that, I'm going to kick things over to Sean to wrap up this EcoCast. Sean, the floor is yours.
Hi, great to be here, everyone. My name is Sean Donaldson. I'm the Chief Technology Officer at Proterra. I've spent the last 20 plus years working in comprehensive managed services, running mission critical applications in a variety of different cloud platforms. So the beginning half of my career, as many of you have, was focused around running enterprise class applications, SAP, Epic, QAD, JD Edwards, PeopleSoft in large global private cloud environments. Over the years, and as technology has progressed, I have moved many of those workloads into public cloud environments and seen some of the both challenges as well as opportunities that come from utilizing a public cloud platform. What we're going to talk about a little bit today is some of the differences between, hey, when do I choose data center? When do I choose cloud? When do I choose Colo? When do I use edge? And we're going to dive into some of those topics and what is the right use case. Something you'll probably hear me say a couple of times today as we go through this is really there's no one right answer. And we're gonna double click on that theme a bit and walk through that in today's presentation. So first of all, this is always a great place to start is what are the problems we're trying to solve today, right? As a CIO, as an IT director, running a global organization, or even running a small to medium-sized business, what are the challenges I'm trying to solve in today's landscape? So the one that generally always comes up, maybe not the top, but second to the top, is security. And security's been there for a long time, but what we've seen is the idea of managing security has morphed and evolved over the years. So one of the big areas that it's continued to grow and develop is security has moved beyond simply being that I'm having a good SIEM, security log platform. I'm having a good EDR, endpoint detection, managed detection response. Those are all traditional security components and part of the environment. What we've seen is this idea of the CISO and the CIO roles kind of merge and kind of overlap a lot more. And what we're seeing now is the CISOs and the security posture in general is also about resiliency and business continuity planning. It's not always about, I can just put the right technology in place and I will prevent any type of security event happening. It's about, I'm going to put the best technology in place. I'm going to put the best tools in place to notify me as soon as possible but I need to make sure what are those business continuity plans to keep the business operating if and when the worst happens. So it's really leaning into that idea of doing security with the business and not to the business. Cost has always been a primary factor. And while cost is important, it's not always about just reducing cost. What we're seeing in the IT landscape today is that we're looking at more about rationalizing the cost and saying, how is every dollar I'm spending in IT being utilized the most? What we're seeing now in the trends with AI, with data, with some of these new technologies, IT is transforming from simply being something that would support the business and simply need to justify its own existence to being something now that has an opportunity to generate new revenue streams that might not have been available before. Whether that's through data and AI platforms, whether that's through mobile applications, SaaS platforms, any number of ways, but it's a way of both enabling, empowering the business, but also leaning into the idea of how do I actually create new revenue streams for the business, be part of it. And this idea of agility. And agility has, again, evolved through the years. It really goes into that idea, and this is a lot of what the value of public cloud comes from, is that idea of how do I lean into this idea of continuous innovation, right? Public cloud gives us this capability to utilize cutting edge tools to solve problems. How do I utilize data and AI to optimize my business, to give better reports, predictive analytics? How do I continuously lean into where the industry trends are and steer my business that right direction with not over rotating into a hype cycle? That idea of experimentation and testing and making sure that I am applying the right amount of technology at the right place for what my business needs to drive the outcomes that they want. So when we look at this platform, this ecosystem of, I like to look at it from edge to cloud, right? And what I always like to look at here is that idea that it's of equal flaw to move everything to cloud as it is to move nothing to cloud, right? It's all about the right placement for the right workloads, for the right risk, security, and outcomes for that business. Starting at the very top of this is, and we'll just talk about this a little bit. I threw a little bit of SaaS in here because it is a part of that ecosystem. So SaaS has its very specific use cases, and we'll talk about a few of those in a second, right? I think we know a lot of them, the Salesforces, ServiceNow, some of those. And then what I like to see is I like to see this almost kind of relationship between public cloud and what I like to look at is public cloud adjacent private cloud or Colo. And we'll talk a little bit about, well, what makes it public cloud adjacent? What do you mean by that? What workloads are best for these different use cases? Again, based on all of our different themes and factors. And then another area that we continue to see grow with both trends and with our customers is edge. So edge is something that doesn't get talked about a lot. It's kind of sometimes forgotten about. But in today's ecosystem, it actually becomes one of the more important areas of a comprehensive enterprise IT plan. And what edge means is it's everything at my edge locations, my retail shops, my manufacturing locations, even autonomous cars. And we'll double click on that a little bit more in a second here, and we'll dive into, well, what does edge really mean and why is it important? This is something I wanted to call out. I actually threw these slides in a bit at the last minute. There's been a lot of chatter lately on social media in different areas of what's the trend. And there's been these slides. I don't know if you've seen the Barclays CIO 2024 survey. I call it out specifically because people like Michael Dell have been posting about it. They've been putting these images up there and talking about this repatronization from public cloud back into private cloud. And there's a lot of questions going around. Is that really happening? Is that direction? What are we seeing in the trends that we see? So I want to answer some of those questions and talk about them. And I think it's not going to be terribly surprising to anyone what those answers are, but it's all about balance. And when I look at cloud, like I said, it's all about balance. It's about understanding I've got these different buckets that have different characteristics, and how do I put the right workloads in the right place? And that's that's going to drive a lot of our decisions. And we're going to double click on each one of those and where they make sense. But it's, again, we have to think about what are my security, my cost, my agility, what drives the right use cases for my business? Do I do multi-public cloud? Do I go to both Google or AWS, Azure? How many of those different landscapes do I have? Having too many landscapes can cause an environment becomes hard to manage, costly, and can create security concerns. Having not enough and only using public cloud and not having a proper edge deployment and things of that nature can limit or hinder the business's ability to utilize things like IoT and some of the innovation, right? So we got to figure out what that balance means and what's right for our business. So starting at the very beginning, because this is probably arguably the easiest, is SaaS. And we've all been using SaaS, whether it's using Microsoft Office.com and M365 or Google's Gmail for many, many years. And SaaS is a great fit for the right workloads that a lot of times it's pretty clear what those workloads are. So things like your ITSM, your ticketing system, whether that's ServiceNow or Freshdesk or any number of other ticketing systems out there. Your Salesforce, your CRM platforms, your HR applications, these are really, really common use cases for SaaS that make a ton of sense. Now, being said, we still have to be mindful of the security posture of these platforms. We still need to be mindful of identity access. We need to be mindful of, is that data being backed up? How critical is this SaaS application to my business, and how does that fit into my business continuity plan? Those are all really, really important topics that we need to think about as we're looking at a SaaS platform. And we're starting to see more and more vendors out there that are providing various degrees of comprehensive backups, ransomware mitigation tools for those SaaS platforms. I was just reading a study the other day that in ServiceNow, there is over 1,000 knowledge bases that are simply through misconfiguration public to the internet. So just because it's SaaS doesn't mean it's intrinsically secure. We need to make sure that we are applying the right policies, the right security, the right identity to keep that environment secure, keep it locked down, and keep it part of that holistic IT security ecosystem. One of the more interesting moves that's happening right now, and we've seen multiple software companies do this, is SAP making the transition from a traditional on-premise monolithic ERP application to try to be a bit of a SaaS platform with RISE. They're being very successful with this with their BTP platform that is truly a SaaS from the ground up platform. And I expect that we're going to see RISE over the next 10 years or so truly become an industry-leading SaaS platform as well. And Proterra, as well as other providers, are continuing to lean into this and how we support this for our customers, looking at those proper workloads for this type of environment. Public cloud versus public cloud adjacent, right? And I think this is an area where, again, this really gets into an important part of what workload goes where and why. So public cloud, why do I choose public cloud? What are the reasons? And they shouldn't just be because everybody else is moving to public cloud, right? It should be because it has capabilities, it has everything from security to global presence that really helps support my business. So first and foremost, scalability is a cornerstone of the public cloud. It gives me that ability to flex up, flex down, do those different things. With the kind of the hooking off of the idea of scalability is that global reach theme. One of the really nice things, and we just did this for another customer, is the customer had a global CAD application that needed to be delivered to people in Singapore and Frankfurt, the United States. Well, public cloud gives us that capability to really easily deploy GPU-enabled high-performance instances in multiple different regions globally across a consistent model without having to buy hardware, go through contracts, go through all of the different tax and legal codes of trying to get co-locations in these other locations. I've done that before in past lives. It can be a bit of work when you're trying to ship hardware to different locations geographically, working through the tax laws. So that ability to have that global reach and that scalability, it becomes incredibly important. hooking onto that is the idea of cutting edge technology. So in that same use case, we were able to deploy some of the most cutting edge GPUs to these regions. We didn't have to worry about supply chain constraints or some of these other issues. So not only do I get access to cutting edge technology, I can deploy it on a global scale. And other areas where we're seeing that, again, that industry leading technology is with machine learning and those LLMs. So the large language models, that's the back end that's powering all the generative AI. So now if I want to be able to use generative AI and I am not in a position to buy 1,000 or tens of thousands of NVIDIA hardware myself, a great option that we're seeing a lot of enterprises do is utilize the large language models that Google, AWS, Azure have created, continuously innovate and hook into those with their business data, keeping their business data secure still, but being able to hook into those large language models and leverage that technology. And simply as probably every 6 months or so, a new large language model comes out, a new innovation, they can just hook into it, continue to take advantage of that continuous innovation. There's a number of other areas with that cutting edge technology theme that is available for businesses in the public cloud. Other great capabilities is its public cloud is amazingly automation friendly. So as we talk about things like infrastructure as code and security as code, we can really hook into these topics and these ideas and drive a tremendous amount of automation. So now I want to, it changes that mindset from managing individual servers to now I want to manage fleets of servers and have compliance as code, security as code, and I want to manage it on scale. And when I say scale, it's not even about scale in one location, it's about a global scale. And the public cloud really enables us to do some of those areas. More of that innovation in cloud native services, we're starting to see more and more applications deployed with Kubernetes. Now, Kubernetes is an amazing platform if you're doing your own custom software development. We're seeing a lot of people utilize that. Proterra ourselves utilize it for our Cloud Vantage experience and platform for our customers. We built it all in microservices, utilizing Kubernetes and utilizing modern CI/CD pipelines. But we're starting to see actually more commercial off-the-shelf platforms be deployed in Kubernetes. Again, the public cloud is a great location for this. They take a lot of that heavy lifting of Kubernetes off your shoulders and allow a very streamlined and very well-managed deployment of it. Now, being said, does that mean that there's no use anymore for private clouds and colos? Well, I wouldn't say that either, right? I like to look at it, this idea of a private cloud that's public cloud adjacent. And what that means to me is that you've got your major public cloud geographic regions in East and West and Central. What you see as well is in those same locations, there are large co-location providers that are quite literally miles away from the public cloud providers. What that means is I can get very high speed connectivity between my private cloud colo and my public cloud and make them feel almost as if they're in the same region. And that's great when I have things like, maybe I have a bunch of hardware that I bought a year or two ago that's on a 5-year depreciation cycle. And I've got some workloads that are very static workloads. They're not super business critical. And I want to run them in a way that I know they're not going to change a lot. They're not going to take advantage of a lot of those great capabilities that public cloud gives me. Well, I can put them in a couple of racks that is, again, public cloud adjacent and take advantage of that. Maybe I've got things like AS400s, HPUX, mainframes, different very specialized hardware that I've got applications that are still running on that are critical to my business. But I want them to be part of that cloud ecosystem. I can put them in one of these kind of public cloud adjacent private clouds that gives me a lot of that capability to be very high speed, very fabric connected to the public cloud providers. One of the other use cases that I'm starting to see a lot, and this only applies to maybe about 5 or 10% of the businesses. We're seeing some of the very large enterprises start to develop where they say, hey, I need to develop my own AI model. So I want to buy thousands of NVIDIA GPUs, thousands of servers, and I want to actually create my own data models, and I'm going to really lean into this idea to differentiate my business. So if you're one of these organizations, we're starting to see the paradigm of what a data center looks like actually actively change, because these type of large scale AI platforms really have a significantly different power cooling requirements than a traditional data center or colo did. So we are starting to see this trend start to happen as well, but it's a very, very specific use case for the right size businesses that are going to lean into this type of scenario. And edge is one that's got a special place in my heart, because I think it's really important. It's something that for a long time has been overlooked by enterprise IT. A lot of times in enterprise IT, my resources that were in my main data center, my main colo, my main public cloud were really the crown jewels. And all of those resources and applications, I would make sure they had disaster recovery testing, they had backups, they had patching, they had security controls, they had everything that I would expect out of an enterprise IT organization and platform. But what happened is sometimes in my manufacturing plant, maybe I've got some servers there that are still running Windows 2008. Maybe I've got some systems that, they don't really get patched, or we don't really maybe have security on them as much. And what happens is I still maybe have Active Directory servers out there or other business critical systems. And this can become a point of compromise, right? This can become a point of compromise that bad actors can get in, and through those entry points, through that perimeter, use that as a perimeter entry point to move into the rest of the enterprise and the rest of the organization. That's one aspect of it from the security side. Another aspect that we're seeing is that edge is becoming much more important with feeding this critical data up to the business that it needs to power things like machine learning and AI. So at the edge, whether it's a manufacturing location where we're seeing a lot more IoT, OT type integration, aggregation, and I'm going to have some compute resources at that edge that are going to collect, aggregate, maybe cache. If I've got maybe I don't have the best, most stable connection up from my remote edge manufacturing plant or an oil rig or different things like this, it's going to cache and aggregate that data and then send it up to the cloud and allow my business then to ingest it. So then if I want to use things like different dashboards or Power BI to now visualize my global business data, I've got a good way to do that. I think a trend that we're all seeing is, and we've talked about it a few times here in a few different ways, but really this importance of data, right? And, when I talk about public cloud, the value that public cloud gives to innovation, that value of data is something that is continuing to accelerate and by no means decelerating. And a meaningful amount of my data, to a certain degree, is generated at my edge. So again, whether that's everything from autonomous cars to casinos to we've seen different municipalities and cities all deploying more robust edge infrastructures to be able to handle these types of environments. Maybe there's some degrees of machine learning I can do at the edge and consolidate it before I send it up to the cloud. Maybe there's different things I can do there, but more of this idea of the edge becoming truly a first-class citizen in that global IT landscape. Something that's really interesting as well, and a few different providers have done this, Microsoft, AWS, they've really leaned into this idea of saying, hey, we want to expand our cloud into the edge as well. So AWS has the idea of outposts. Microsoft Azure has Azure HCI, or their hyper-converged solution. We've had great success deploying these for various manufacturing organizations that say, hey, I've got important requirements for edge still, and I want to make sure that these are managed and maintained in the same way as the rest of my ecosystem. And we are going to be effectively extending our cloud platforms into the edge platform and be able to see it as one IT ecosystem. I think that's a really important trend that we're starting to see across the industry, and one that's probably going to continue through the next several years as, again, data becomes more important. Feeding in multiple data sources continues to be more important, as well as security continues to accelerate as a top trend for CIOs and IT businesses. So here's a couple things to consider, and this is a bit of reiterating on some of the themes we talked about already, but data sensitivity and compliance, right? And this is everything from PCI, SOX, GDPR, HIPAA, and then data sovereignty. So as we talked about the public cloud and the great value that the public cloud gives you from a global reach perspective, one of the big topics that comes up a lot around that is the idea of data sovereignty. So maybe I've got a particular country or multiple countries that say, hey, the data for this country must remain within this country. And a way to do that and ensure that I've got the workloads there and I can deploy them quickly and manage them is through that public cloud capability and lean into the idea of hey, we're going to easily support data sovereignty without overly taxing our IT business and having to go through all the VAT taxes and different things that happen with trying to deploy hardware resources in all of these different locations geographically. The next one that we talked about quite a bit is security. And I intentionally left compliance and security as separate topics because I think it's always good that we look at those as separate topics. While it's very good to have, whether it's ISO 27001, SOC 2, HIPAA, GDPR, SOX, CMMC2, all of these are really, really great compliances, but they are audits that we go through. We also have to make sure is that we're doing true security as well, right? So we're looking at a holistic security ecosystem. We're looking at our platforms from a security perspective, able to look at identity. Identity is a huge part of the security ecosystem today. Identity powers a lot of the zero trust network access type solutions out there, SASE being one of them. Looking at my EDR, my XDR technologies, right? My endpoint detection. Across all of my different endpoints, that's everything from someone's laptop to a server at an edge location to a server in the cloud. How am I making sure that across all of those different platforms and systems, I am able to continuously monitor, continuously track what is happening? And if I'm not stopping a bad actor, my next best thing is I want to identify them as quick as possible. So I want to have that. My CISO always says, I want to have bells on a string, right? So assume that someone's always going to get in. And once they get in, I want to identify them as quickly as possible and remediate it. And in order to do that, I need to have my arms around all this entire ecosystem and have the governance around that. Cost optimization is always something that comes up as a very important, very critical topic, right? When I talk about public cloud versus private cloud, a lot of times it's CapEx versus OpEx, but a lot more of it leans into that idea of, am I placing the right workloads in the right locations to drive the best outcome for the business? And again, that doesn't always mean reducing cost. It could be that I'm actually spending more money in certain areas, but I'm driving innovation that the business needs that drives a greater ROI for the overall business, right? So maybe IT is costing a little bit more, but maybe I'm creating a new revenue stream. Maybe I'm optimizing some of the reporting I can do for my business. Instead of maybe getting a monthly report, now they have a real-time dashboard to inform them and make business decisions off of. Technical expertise. This is really important as well, especially as we talk about all these different platforms, right? As I'm talking about public cloud, private cloud, edge, different technologies, I do want to be mindful of the technical expertise that's required and simplify that as much as possible. Continuous innovation. Again, this is a huge opportunity for public cloud that I'm continuously using modern technology. As innovative technology comes available, I have that ability to lead into it and utilize it for my business. And as always, performance, this is where, whether I'm talking workloads on the public cloud or I'm talking about my edge environment that for whatever reason needs to be closer to end users or machinery, how do I make sure that the workloads are getting the right performance? So from a Proterra perspective, how do we help customers with this? We help customers in a number of different ways on public cloud, on edge, on WAN, SD-WAN, on SAP RISE, and more than anything, helping them get a holistic view of their entire IT ecosystem from a governance, security, and compliance perspective. We help make sure they have access to the right information for decision making, help them lean into the idea of, hey, how do I use some of these data platforms? How do I experiment? If I do want to start ingesting different data sources, data lakes, lake houses, swamps, fogs, goes by lots of different names. But how do we help enable our customers that they have that capability to make their data scientists really, really successful, to get all that data in a secure and compliant way? And last but certainly not least is compliance and security regulatory guidelines, right? Our SecOps are deeply ingrained in our cloud operations, and our SecOps help our customers to really ensure that, again, their environments, that they're running, we continuously make sure they're up to the highest degree of security and compliance that they can to support the business requirements. At Proterra, we've got a number of really, really amazing success stories from a number of our different clients, Valori Foods, the Tile Shop, Daikin. So these are 3 examples that we picked of customers that we helped with migrations to the public cloud. In many cases, we're managing their public cloud for their SAP workloads, their other IT workloads in the public cloud, and in many cases, actually edge workloads or networks that they might have as well. These are just a handful of the use cases that we have. We have a number of customer success stories and use cases that vary from different industry verticals, different cloud platforms, providers. We definitely encourage you to check out the QR code, check out our link, see what we've done before. If you don't see one of the success stories that matches your unique workload or use case, please reach out to us. Maybe it's just something we haven't published yet. Maybe it's something we're still working on from a publishing perspective. We'd love to talk to you about it and even get you in touch with some of our multiple referenceable customers who'd love to talk to you about what we've done for them and how we've worked through some of those challenges they've had and help them deliver those business outcomes. So I'm going to pause right there. I know that was a lot that I went through. I appreciate you sticking with me through it, and we'll open up for a few questions.
Awesome. Yeah, great presentation. You guys should definitely check out those case studies because I know those always kind of hit and mean a little bit more, puts in context for you. And we've had quite a few questions. We're pushing up a little against time, so we probably won't get through all of them, but let's do a few here together and we'll go from there. So first question I've got for you here is coming in asking, what are Proterra's top 3 differentiators in the market?
Yeah, no, absolutely great question. So I'd say one of the top differentiators for us is that Proterra, we lean into the idea of incorporating security and compliance into everything that we do. It's not a bolt-on, it's not a second thought. While we do have a tremendous amount of expertise in things like infrastructure as code, deploying workloads on public cloud, managing high availability of very large workloads, we also have our security teams highly ingrained with that. So our infrastructure as code, we look at as security as code. We look at how we deploy these workloads, again, across multiple regions, multiple countries globally, and really leaning into that security and compliance capabilities that differentiates us from a lot of the other providers out there.
Nice. Love hearing that. I've got a few questions here about workloads. So the first one here is asking, does Proterra help customers decide what workloads should live where?
Yeah, absolutely. And this is a common question for us. So we actually have created a few different sets of proprietary discovery and migration tool sets. And what this can do is this can help analyze existing workloads and understand everything from what they talk to today, what interactions are happening, how often have they been patched, what versions are they on, how ready are they for cloud? What dependencies do they have? And we work through an active workshops with our customers to talk about, okay, what is the best placement for these different workloads? Where should they go and why? How critical are they for the business? What security concerns should they have? Sometimes we'll find a server that maybe hasn't been patched in 600 days, different things like that. And we help our customers with that. And we help understand, is there a reason for that? Maybe it was a specific use case. Maybe it needs to stay at that location. There's a way we can air gap it because and harden it off that it's mitigating the security threats that might adhere to it through the lack of patching. Maybe there's other business reasons that have driven that use case. But we really look at being collaborative. We want to be an enabler, not an inhibitor for our customers. We want to be collaborative with them. We want to help them through that journey and understand better what is the best workload placement based on those different requirements, based on those different security and compliance needs.
So little follow-up to that, someone's asking kind of like, what role do managed services play when moving to colocation or cloud environments? And how do you guys assist in managing those workloads? I know you kind of touched on that, but
Yeah, that's a great question. And especially when you say managed services, right? So managed services has meant a lot of different things to a lot of different people over the years, right? My 20 plus years of doing this, managed services can be everything from just someone who's just providing monitoring and backups to someone more like Proterra, who's a partner and extension of your IT team. Where we like to differentiate ourselves at Proterra from a managed services perspective is we want to be that extension of your IT team. We lean into the idea of transparency and visibility. We're not a black box. What we want to do is we want to take a lot of those blocking and tackling tasks that are key for every organization. And we want to take a lot of that workload off the IT staff and allow them to spend more time focusing on the business, focusing on innovation. How can they drive innovation, using IT to solve problems for their business, and being that extension of the IT staff that is a trusted advisor, trusted partner, helping them manage those cloud environments, cloud workloads, SAP, RISE in a compliant, highly regulated fashion.
Excellent. Well, great. This has been so eye-opening. I've really enjoyed hearing you speak and being able to pick your brain a little bit. I think that's the last question we're going to have time for today, but we're going to throw up a poll. So for all of you out there in the audience, we're going to put up a poll, which is asking you, is a cloud let me try that again. Is a cloud repatriation project on the horizon for your organization? So yes or no question. Would love to hear your guys' responses. And right before I put that up, I just want to give you a final thank you for being here, Sean.
Thanks. I really appreciate it. Really appreciate everyone's time. I realize that's your most valuable asset, so I appreciate you taking the time with us today. If you have any other questions, please feel free to reach out. I'd love to talk to you more about any of these topics. Probably talked longer than I should have today already, but I appreciate you taking the time with us.
Awesome. Thanks again. Cheers.
All right. Thanks, everyone.
All right, we've got a couple polls up here as mentioned, so please do answer those now. We've got them back to back, so won't leave them up very long. This is a fast round. What do they call it? The fastest finger in the West. That's what we're looking for here. So go ahead. Yes, no, and then I've got one more poll we're going to throw up here in just a quick second. Again, thank you all for being so interactive today and asking all these questions. It is super great to get your feedback, and it just helps us and all of our speakers understand what kind of information you're looking for. All right, final countdown. We've got just seconds left, and then I'm going to flip over to the other poll here. Thank you again for answering this. All right, and finally, we've got the poll there asking what additional information you'd like about the Proterra solution. So if you're looking for data sheets, white papers, case studies, pricing details, personal demos, or maybe you're already a customer, or you don't want anything at all. This is your easy button, your wish list. This is where you can get exactly what you're looking for when you want it. And again, we are about to wrap things up today, so we're just going to leave this up for a couple more seconds and then give out our final prizes. Alrighty, everyone, if you haven't yet checked out that handouts tab, you definitely want to do that now. We've got a couple handouts in there from our teams who've been presenting, and we are about to wrap things up and give away our final prizes. So I just want to make sure you get those and that you got them for safekeeping and review after today's EcoCast. And with that, speaking of prizes, let's get these final $300 Amazon gift cards given out to those of you who are here live and present on today's webinar. That is right. So we have got our second $300 gift card going out to Kenley Obas from Alabama. Congratulations, Kenley. And our third and final gift card going out to Dan Villando from Washington. Now, just to recap all three, if you stepped away or you didn't hear your name called the first time, our first gift card went out to Sean Ford from Missouri, second to Kenley Obas from Alabama, third to Dan Villando from Washington. And again, we also have those $50 Best Question gift cards. So if you did ask a great question today during the session, we might also be reaching out to you for one of those. So congrats again, and we'll be reaching out to all of our winners after today's webinar. And with that, I just want to give a final thank you to all of our speakers who have been so excellent today. And I also want to mention that if any of you are looking to sponsor an event, as in join us here on mic presenting, we would love to have you. That'd be a great conversation to open up with you. If you want to check out one of the EcoCasts, Megacasts, or even one of our summits, you can email connect@actualtechmedia.com to find out a little bit more about how you can do that. Now, finally, I want you to mark your calendars. If you liked what you heard today and you want to explore deeper in some other topics, we have got our Megacast coming up September 25th. That's the Wednesday at 12 noon Eastern, 9 a.m. Pacific. And this one is about defense in depth, exploring the elements of a layered security program. So, a bunch of great vendors on there. You definitely want to check it out. And with that, I'm just going to say a final thank you to all of you for tuning in today. It is not easy to come on and think ahead, plan ahead, and you guys did that today. You took your time out of your busy days so that you could learn about some new tools and instruments to take this challenge head on. And so I hope you're feeling great. I hope you're feeling lit up and excited and more equipped to go back to your organizations and to make some action happen. So again, thank you so much. Huge appreciation to all of you. And I'm going to say goodbye until our next webinar. Have an absolutely magical rest of your days and take good care, everybody.